My child, I know what you've been carrying. Not the things you show people, but the things you keep to yourself. The thoughts you don't say out loud. The weight you pretend is not there. The moments where you felt like no one truly understood. I saw all of it. Every silent struggle. Every time you held it in instead of letting it out. Every moment you told yourself, I'll deal with it later. But it never really left you. It stayed, quietly, growing heavier. My child, you were never meant to carry this alone. And yet, you've been trying to, for longer than you should have.
My child, you have become used to carrying it, so much that you barely notice it anymore. But it is still there, in the way your mind never fully rests, in the way your thoughts keep returning to the same place, in the way you feel tired, even when you've done nothing. You tell yourself you're fine. You keep going. You keep showing up. You keep doing what needs to be done. But inside, there is something you haven't faced, something you've been holding on to quietly. Not because you want to, but because you don't know what to do with it. My child, you don't talk about it. You don't explain it. You just carry it. And over time, it became part of your normal. But just because you've learned to live with it, does not mean you were meant to. My child, you didn't choose to carry this. It came from moments that stayed with you. Things that happened. Things that were said. Things you never got the chance to understand. And instead of releasing them, you held them. At first, just to get through the moment. But then, the moment passed, and the weight remained. You tried to move on. You told yourself it didn't matter. You told yourself you were stronger than it. But strength is not pretending something isn't there. And deep down, you knew that. Because it would come back. In quiet moments. In sudden thoughts. In feelings you couldn't explain. My child, this is why it still feels heavy. Not because you are weak, but because it was never meant to stay with you this long. My child, you thought no one noticed. You thought no one could see past the way you hold yourself together. But I saw you. I saw the moments you went quiet, not because you had nothing to say, but because you didn't have the strength to explain. I saw the times you smiled, while something inside you felt heavy. I saw the nights your mind wouldn't slow down, even when everything around you was still. You kept it all inside, not because it didn't matter, but because it mattered too much. And you didn't know where to place it. My child, you were not invisible in those moments. You were not alone in them. Even when it felt like no one understood, I was there, watching, listening, staying close. Even when you couldn't feel it. My child, you don't have to keep holding it the same way anymore. You don't have to keep carrying it in silence. I am not asking you to ignore it. And I am not asking you to pretend it never happened. I am asking you to stop carrying it alone. Because that is what has been making it heavier. Not the weight itself, but the way you've been holding it by yourself. You learn to stay strong. You learn to keep moving. You learn to push through it. But now, it is time to do something different. Not by forcing it away, but by allowing it to come into the light, my child. Healing does not begin when everything disappears. It begins when you stop hiding what you feel. When you stop pretending you are not affected. When you allow yourself to acknowledge it, without running from it. This is where the weight begins to change, not all at once, but enough for you to feel it, and that is where everything starts to shift. My child, the moment you stop holding it in the same way, you begin to feel a small release, not everything at once, but enough to notice, because what you kept buried is no longer being carried in silence, and that changes how it sits inside you. It no longer feels as tight. It no longer feels as overwhelming. You begin to breathe a little easier. You begin to think a little clearer. Not because the past changed, but because you are no longer holding it the same way. My child, you have been stronger than you needed to be. You carried things that were not meant to stay with you. You held on to emotions that were never meant to live inside you this long. But now, you are allowing them to move, and as they begin to move, the weight begins to lift. Slowly, gently, but truly. And for the first time in a long while, you begin to feel like yourself again. My child, as this weight begins to lift, you will start to notice something changing within you, not just relief, but clarity. You begin to understand yourself in a way you couldn't before. You begin to see what affected you and why it stayed. And instead of feeling overwhelmed by it, you begin to feel stronger through it, because you are no longer avoiding it. You are no longer hiding from it. You are facing it with honesty, and that changes everything. My child, you are not the same person you were when this first began. You have grown. You have endured. You have learned things you didn't even realize at the time. And now, you are in a place where you can move forward differently, not carrying everything behind you, but stepping ahead with understanding, with awareness, with strength that comes from truth. And that is what begins to restore you. Not all at once, but in a way that is real and lasting. My child, as you continue to release what you've been holding, you will begin to feel a peace returning to you. Not all at once, but in quiet moments, in the way your mind feels calmer, in the way your heart feels lighter, in the way you no longer react the same way you used to, because something inside you has settled. You are no longer carrying everything at once. You are no longer holding on to what was weighing you down, and that creates space. Space for peace, space for clarity, space for you to feel like yourself again. My child, this is what restoration begins to look like. Not loud, not overwhelming, but steady, gentle, real. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to feel grounded again. And from this place, you move differently, not from pain, not from pressure, but from peace. And that is where your life begins to truly align. My child, now that you have come this far, do not go back to carrying it the same way again. Do not return to silence. Do not return to holding everything inside, because you were never meant to carry this alone. Not then, not now, not ever. My child, I have been with you through all of it, through the moments you didn't understand, through the pain you couldn't explain, through the times you felt like no one saw you. I saw you. I stayed with you. And I am still here, not to leave you where you were, but to walk with you as you move forward. So take this with you. You are not alone in what you feel. You are not alone in what you've been carrying, and you don't have to keep holding it the same way anymore. Because from this moment forward, you can begin again. Not from the pain, but from the peace you are now stepping into. End.